People said the boy living in the fancy apartment was scary. They said he had made 23 helpers quit in just 4 years. They said the scar on his face had made him mean inside, and nothing could fix him. But I didn't believe in scary people. I believed in people who just forgot how to be kind. I didn't know that helping him would change my whole life. The curtains stayed shut. That was the first thing Jin-woo looked at every morning. He touched the thick dark curtains with his fingers, looking for any tiny holes, looking for any sneaky sunlight getting through. When he found none, he felt relieved. The fancy apartment was quiet, like rich places always are, empty and cold. 74 floors up in the sky, surrounded by fancy marble and glass. His grandmother picked it because it looked modern. To Jin-woo, it felt like a grave. He'd stopped complaining years ago. She didn't disagree with him. He moved through the apartment without thinking. Coffee from a machine someone else had set up. He drank it, but it didn't taste like anything. Lately, nothing did. His daily routine was the only thing keeping him going. He showered without looking at the mirror he'd covered with newspaper 3 years ago. He dressed in black turtleneck and pants clothes that cost more than most people's rent. He looked like someone sad about a death. He guessed he was, even though he couldn't remember what he had lost anymore. He saw himself briefly in the dark TV screen, half a face he could stand to see. His father's jaw, his mother's mouth. Almost the boy he used to be before the fire. Almost he turned away before the other half could remind him of what survived and what didn't. 23 helpers in 4 years. He counted them like he was counting time in jail. His grandmother hired them with promises of good money and warnings about his delicate health. They arrived feeling sorry for him and left feeling relieved. He didn't blame them. He'd made himself hard to deal with on purpose. The intercom buzzed at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. His grandmother never visited in person, but she called right on time every day because for her, time was money. And money was the only thing she really understood. Jin-woo, not a hello, just checking that he was alive. Grandmother, he didn't turn on the video. She knew better than to ask. The new helper arrives at 10 o'clock. Her name is Anna Andrews. American here on a student visa. Working part-time, very qualified, apparently. Her voice sounded mean, especially when talking about anyone who worked for a living. Try not to destroy this one in the first week. The line went dead before he could say anything back. Not that he would have. Conversations with his grandmother were just quiet moments with a few words thrown in. Anna Andrews, American. He thought about the name, feeling how different it sounded. The last helper had been Mrs. Lim, a strict woman in her 50s who lasted exactly 9 days before she told his grandmother that some people couldn't be helped and that she wasn't paid enough to deal with rudeness. Jin-woo had called her a quitter to her face. She'd called him something worse in Korean that he pretended not to understand. He sat in his usual spother leather chair in the corner of the living room that faced away from the windows, toward the blank wall where his grandmother had hung an expensive painting because it was worth more money every year. The painting was blocks of grey on darker grey. Jin-woo stared at it for hours, some days, finding comfort in its complete emptiness. The door code beeped at 10:03, 3 minutes late. He noticed this as either her being bad at time or doing it on purpose. Most helpers arrived early, wanting to make good first impressions, with practiced smiles and carefully blank faces for when they finally saw his scar. Footsteps in the entrance, lighter than he expected. Careful but not scared. There was a difference. He heard her put something down, heard her take off her coat, heard her breathe in deeply like she was getting ready. Hello. Her voice had the round sounds of American English, warm in a way that immediately annoyed him. Mr. Park, I'm Anna Andrews. Your grandmother sent me. He didn't say anything, waited to see what she'd do, and he stayed silent. More footsteps. Close as she was walking through the apartment, he realized, actually looking around instead of standing frozen at the door like the others had. Either brave or stupid, he hadn't decided which. Wow, she said, and he heard real surprise, not fake amazement. This place is really something. Though I gotta say, it's darker than a movie theater in here. Do you part vampire or just really into the whole sad, mysterious look? Jean Woo's jaw got tight. Humor. They always tried jokes first, like his life was something tense that could be relaxed with a good joke. The light bothers me, he said to the wall, voice flat. If that's a problem, there's the door. Silence. He counted seconds. 1, 2, 3. Waiting for her to get offended, for the apologies to start, for the careful backtracking that would prove she was like all the others. "Oh, okay," she said instead, easy as breathing. "No problem. I'm pretty flexible though. Maybe we could open one curtain, just a tiny bit. Vitamin D deficiency is real, and I don't know if your health insurance covers bone disease." Despite himself, something in his chest twitched almost, like wanting to laugh. He crushed it immediately. "I don't need a comedian. I need someone who can follow simple instructions and stay out of my way." "Got it. Invisible helper. I can do that." Her footsteps moved toward the kitchen. He heard cabinet doors opening, the refrigerator humming its empty song. "Though I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Park Jin-woo." The correction surprised him as much as it probably surprised her. He never let them use his first name. First names meant being familiar, and being familiar meant that he wanted them there for more than the shortest time his grandmother required. "Okay, Jin-woo," she said it carefully, getting it right on the first try. "I'm going to be honest. Your fridge is sadder than a country song. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't delivered in a plastic container? That's none of your concern. Actually, it literally is my concern. Your grandmother hired me to make sure you don't waste away to nothing in this." She paused. He could almost hear her searching for a word that wasn't mean. Very simple space. "So what do you actually like to eat?" Jin-woo turned his head slightly. Not enough to see her, just enough to aim his voice toward the kitchen. "I'd like to be left alone. Not a food group, but I appreciate the honesty." Something clattered. She was going through drawers. "Do you have a pen and paper? I need to make a grocery list. Unless you want to live on whatever's growing its own life in this takeout container." He stood up fast, the chair scraping against marble. His hands curled into fists at his sides, nails digging into his palms. This was the part where he made them leave, the part where he became so unbearable that they had no choice but to go away, to go back to his grandmother, shaking their heads with stuttered excuses. "You'll leave like the others," he said, his voice dropping into the tone he'd sharp, meant to hurt. "Save us both time. Tell my grandmother you tried. Collect your day's pay, and go back to whatever life you were living before you made the mistake of walking through that door." The kitchen sound stopped. He heard her footsteps, again, coming closer, and his back went stiff. Most of them kept their distance, especially after he showed them who he really was. But Anna Andrews apparently hadn't read the script. She came around the side of his chair. He kept his face turned away, showing her only the left side, the okay side. His heart pounded against his ribs like it was trying to escape. "Look," she said, and her voice had lost the lightness, but not the warmth. "I get it. You didn't ask for me to be here. You probably didn't ask for any of the 23 people who came before me. And yeah, maybe I will leave. Maybe I'll last a day, a week. Who knows?" She paused. "But I'm here right now, and right now, I need this job. So how about we make a deal?" He said nothing, waited. "You don't have to like me. You don't have to talk to me. You don't even have to look at me. But let me do my job. Let me make sure you eat something other than salt and sadness. Let me keep this place from becoming a tomb. And in return, I'll stay out of your way as much as humanly possible. I'll be the ghost in your haunted house." Jin-woo's throat felt tight. Why do you need this job so badly that you'd put up with me?" The pause that followed felt different from the others, heavier. When she spoke again, the warmth had cracked slightly, showing something raw underneath. "Because my mom is sick, stage 4, and the hospital bills don't care about my feelings. And the treatment centers don't accept good intentions as payment. I'm working 3 jobs to send money home and pay for school, and this one pays better than the other 2 combined. So yeah, I need this. I really, really need this. The honesty hit him like a slap. He wasn't used to truth. It wasn't dressed up in politeness. Wasn't used to people admitting they were desperate because it made them weak. And being weak was dangerous in his grandmother's world. But Anna Andrews had just handed him her weakness. He could use it against her. He could remind her daily that she needed him more than he needed her. Could make her beg to stay. He could turn her desperation into a weapon. The thought made him feel sick. Fine, he heard himself say. But I eat alone. You leave meals outside my door. You don't come into my room. You don't ask me questions. You do your job and nothing else. Still relief flooded her voice. Thank you, Jean-Woo. She left the living room, went back to the kitchen, and he listened to her hum something low and pretty while she worked. Not K-pop, something older. Something that sounded like church and Sunday mornings and mothers who sang. He sank back into his chair and stared at the painting until the blocks of grey blurred into one continuous nothing. Anna Andrews was 24 years old, 5,000 miles from home, and absolutely terrified. She didn't let it show. Couldn't afford to. Fear was a luxury for people who had safety nets. And her net had dissolved the day her mother's doctor used the word terminal in the same sentence as 6 months. The apartment was ridiculous beautiful in the way museums were beautiful. Meant to be looked at, not lived in. She'd grown up in a two-bedroom apartment in Chicago where the heater clanged and the neighbors' music came through walls thin as paper. This place was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Jean-Woo Park was exactly what his grandmother had warned her about, and nothing like she'd expected. The interview yesterday had been brutal. Grandmother, Park, and Anna had to think of her as grandmother. Park because calling her Mrs. Park felt too casual for a woman who felt like ice had sat across from her in an office that probably cost more than Anna's entire education. You understand, Grandmother Park had said, sliding a photograph across the desk, that my grandson is difficult. The photo showed a boy around 7. Beautiful child. All dark eyes and a smile that looked like it came easy. Before, Anna had thought. This was the before. He was in an accident when he was young. A fire. His parents, my son and daughter-in-law, didn't survive. Jean-Woo did, but Grandmother Park had gestured vaguely at her own face. He has bad scarring. This made him closed off. Meaning 23 helpers have tried and failed to reach him. Anna had looked at the photograph, at that little boy's smile, and thought about her own mother's words. Hurt people, baby, but that doesn't mean they want to. I can handle difficult, Anna had said, meeting Grandmother Park's gaze. I've worked with kids on the autism spectrum, with dementia patients, with teenagers who thought the world owed them everything. Different kinds of difficult. But I'm patient and I don't give up easy. Grandmother Park had studied her for a long moment. You're here on a student visa. International business, according to your file. Why living because I'm desperate? Anna had thought. Because my mother is dying and I need money now, not after graduation. Because I sent home every dollar I made from my other jobs and it still wasn't enough. I'm good at it, she'd said instead. And I need the hours. I can work around my class schedule. The salary Grandmother Park had offered made Anna's hands shake 3 times what she made at the cafe and the tutoring center combined. Enough to actually make a difference. When can I start? She'd asked. Now, standing in Jean-Woo's tomb of an apartment, Anna wondered if she'd made a mistake. Not because of him, she'd meant what she said. She could handle difficult, but because the sadness in this place was so thick she could taste it, metallic and old, like blood from a bitten tongue. She made a grocery list on her phone, noting the complete absence of anything fresh. No fruit, no vegetables. The freezer held ice and nothing else. The pantry had instant ramen, the expensive kind that still tasted like cardboard and salt. How long had he been living like this? Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate Priya. How's the new gig? Rich boy treating you okay? Anna typed back. Early days, place is nice. He's complicated, aren't they all? Dinner later. Found a place with amazing kimchi. Gigi can't eat a meal prep for the week. Rain check. You work too hard, Beck. Anna pocketed her phone and started opening cabinets, taking inventory. Priya was right. She did work too hard. But hard work was all she had, the only currency she could trade for time, and time was what her mother needed. The call had come 3 days ago. Dr. Martinez, her mother's cancer doctor, with his careful voice and his terrible news. The chemotherapy isn't working. Anna, the tumors are growing. We have some options, clinical trials, experimental treatments, but they're expensive, and insurance won't cover most of it. How expensive? The number he'd given her had stolen the air from her lungs. How long does she have without the treatments? 4 months, maybe 6 if we're lucky. Lucky? Anna had laughed a sound like breaking glass, and Dr. Martinez had gone quiet on the other end. Her mother, Patricia Andrews, the strongest woman Anna had ever known, had been calm when Anna called her that night. Baby, listen to me. You are not dropping out of school. You are not coming home. You worked too hard to get there. Mama, I can't just... Yes, you can. You can stay. You can finish. You can live your life. That's what I want. That's what I've always wanted. But Anna couldn't, wouldn't. So she'd found more jobs, better paying jobs, had sent out applications to every caregiving agency in Seoul until Grandmother Park's office had called. Now she was here, in this beautiful prison, trying to keep a boy who wanted to disappear from fading completely. She found a pen and paper in a drawer, expensive stationery, the kind people used for sad letters, and started her list. Rice, vegetables, protein, things that required preparation. That forced presence in the kitchen. That created smell and sound and evidence of living. The humming started without her realizing it. An old hymn her mother used to sing while cooking Sunday dinner. His eyes on the sparrow. Anna's voice was nothing special, just okay, but it filled the silence in a way that felt necessary. She thought about Jean Wu in the other room, sitting, in darkness by choice, and wondered what kind of pain made a person prefer shadows. Then she thought about her mother, 5,000 miles away. Cells multiplying in all the wrong ways, and understood perfectly. Sometimes the dark felt safer than the light that showed you everything you were losing. Anna finished her list, grabbed her coat, and headed for the door. She paused, looking back at the living room where Jean Wu sat invisible in his corner. "I'm going to the market," she called out. "I'll be back in an hour. Do you need anything?" Silence. She hadn't expected an answer. "Okay, I'll be back." The hallway outside the apartment felt like coming up from underwater. Anna breathed in the recycled air of the building's corridor and let herself feel the weight for just a moment. Her mother dying, her savings disappearing, the strange, sad boy who wore his loneliness like armor. Then she straightened her shoulders, pulled out her phone to find the nearest market, and started walking. "Tay keeps tomorrow alive." It was her mother's phrase, the motto Patricia had whispered through every hardship. When Anna's father left, when money got tight, when the diagnosis came. Today keeps tomorrow alive. So you do today. You survive it. You push through it. You make it to the other side, and tomorrow gets its chance. Anna stepped into the elevator, watched the numbers drop from 74 to ground level, and made herself a promise. She wouldn't leave, not in a week, not in a month, not until Jean Wu Park fired her himself, or until she'd earned enough to give her mother every extra day. Medical science could buy, whichever came first. The elevator doors opened onto Seoul's afternoon chaos, traffic, and voices, and the smell of street food mixing with car exhaust. Anna pulled her coat tighter and walked into it, letting the city swallow her whole. Behind her, 74 floors up, Jean Wu sat in his darkness and listened to the silence she'd left behind. It felt different than before. He told himself he didn't notice. He told himself it didn't matter. He told himself nothing had changed. But the coffee cup she'd washed and left to dry by the sink caught the single sliver of light that had crept in when she'd opened the door, and it gleamed like a small, stubborn star in all that intentional night. The note started on the 3rd day. Jean Wu found the first one tucked under the breakfast plate Anna had left outside his bedroom door, plain white paper. Her handwriting loose and messy, the letters leaning right like they were in a hurry to get somewhere. Coffee's hot. Eggs are scrambled with cheese because that's how my mama makes them, and she's never wrong about anything. Also, fun fact, octopuses have 3 hearts. Thought you should know. He stared at it for a full minute, this invasion of personality into his carefully managed emptiness. The eggs were still steaming, the coffee in an actual ceramic mug instead of the throwaway cups the previous helpers had used, like they couldn't be bothered to wash dishes for someone they'd be leaving anyway. Jean Wu ate the eggs. They were good. He hated that they were good. Second note came with lunch. Kimchi. Fried rice today. I called my roommate Priya for help because apparently I'd been making it wrong my whole life. Who knew you're supposed to use diol rice? Learn something new. Also, did you know that honey never spoils? They found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs and it was still good to eat. Your leftovers in the fridge are not 3,000 years old, but they're getting there. Cleaning it out tomorrow. He didn't respond. He didn't acknowledge them, but he kept the notes, folding them into small squares and tucking them into his desk drawer, where they piled up like evidence of something he refused to name. By the end of the first week, Anna had established a rhythm that Jean Wu found both annoying and oddly comforting. She arrived at 9 every morning, made breakfast, cleaned with an efficiency that suggested military training or growing up poor. He wasn't sure which. He hummed those old songs that sounded like his mother's voice might have sounded if he could remember it clearly. She left him alone. That was the strangest part. She actually left him alone. The others had always tried to engage him, sitting outside his door with their gentle voices and their therapy techniques, asking him how he felt, if he wanted to talk. Wouldn't it be nice to get some fresh air? They treated his isolation like a problem to be solved, rather than a choice to be respected. Anna just existed in his space, made it cleaner, filled it with food, smells, and humming, then disappeared into the guest room she'd claimed as an office, where she took her online classes and did homework, and lived a whole life that had nothing to do with him. It should have been perfect. It was driving him insane. Jean Wu caught himself listening for her, the soft pad of her feet on marble, the way she talked to herself when she studied, reading passages out loud in that American accent that rounded all the hard edges off Korean words, the sound of her laughter during video calls with her roommate, bright and uncomplicated in a way that made his chest ache. On day 9, he broke his own rule. It was just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anna was in the kitchen chopping vegetables with the kind of aggressive precision that suggested she was thinking about something that made her angry. The knife hit the cutting board in rapid thwacks that echoed through the apartment. Jean Wu emerged from his room before he could talk himself out of it. She had her back to him, shoulders tense under a faded Northwestern University sweatshirt that had seen better years. Her hair was pulled up in a messy knot, and she was muttering, under her breath, "Absolutely ridiculous. 20,000 for 1 round. 1. And that's not even counting that she noticed him then, turning with the knife still in hand, her eyes going wide. Oh, hey. Sorry, I didn't hear you. You need something." Jean Wu stood at the boundary between hallway and kitchen, his sanctuary and her domain. He'd positioned himself so she could only see his left side, a habit so ingrained he didn't think about it anymore. "You're upset," he said. Anna blinked, set the knife down. "I'm fine. You're attacking those carrots." A surprised laugh burst out of her. "Okay, yeah, fair. I got some news today about my mom. It's just..." She waved a hand, like she could physically throw away the words. "It's fine. Not your problem." Jean Wu should have left. Should have retreated back to his room in his comfortable numbness. Instead he heard himself say, "The treatment isn't working." It wasn't a question. Anna's face did something complicated, surprise and pain, and the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying too much for too long. "How did you mentioned stage 4. I looked it up." He had, late at night, when sleep wouldn't come, he'd fallen down research rabbit holes about cancer survival rates and experimental treatments, and a particular cruelty of a disease. That gave people just enough hope to make the losing hurt more. Anna's hands gripped the counter edge. The chemo's not shrinking the tumors. You want to try this new trial immunotherapy, combined with targeted radiation. It's showing promising results, but it's not FDA approved yet, so insurance won't touch it. How much, Jean-Woo? I didn't tell you this, Sayuko. How much? She looked at him for a long moment, and he forced himself not to turn away, to let her see the ruined right side of his face that he usually kept hidden. Let her see all of him while he asked her this. 20,000 per round. She'd need at least 3, maybe 4. 80,000, maybe more. The number sat between them like a living thing. Jean-Woo thought about his trust fund, the money that had been piling up since his parents died. Gathering interest he never touched, because spending it felt like admitting they were really gone. Thought about his grandmother's disappointed sighs every time she reviewed his accounts. Yet to learn to use your resources, Jean-Woo, money is a tool. He'd never wanted anything enough to use that tool. Until now. I'll take care of it, he said. Anna's face went very still. What? The treatment. I'll pay for it. All of it. However many rounds she needs. No. The word came out sharp. Absolutely not. I didn't tell you this, Jean-Woo. I can't let you do that. Why not? Because it's too much. Because I don't take charity. Because her voice cracked. Because what if it doesn't work? What if you spend all that money, and she dies anyway? Jean-Woo moved closer, crossing fully into the kitchen for the first time since Anna had arrived. He could smell the vegetables. She'd been cutting something with garlic and ginger that made the space feel alive. Then she dies, having tried everything possible, he said quietly. And you don't spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have saved her with one more treatment, one more chance. Tears were sliding down Anna's face now, and she wiped at them angrily with the back of her hand. You don't even know? Me. Why would you do this? The honest answer was too complicated, too wrapped up in the way her presence had started to feel necessary, like she brought oxygen into his vacuum. So he gave her a simpler truth. Because you stayed. Everyone else left, and you stayed. Let me do this. Anna made a sound that was half sob. Then she crossed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him before he could process what was happening. Jean-Woo froze. He hadn't been truly touched, not counting his grandmother's brief clinical hand on his shoulder. At mandatory family events in years, Anna was warm and solid and shaking slightly, her face pressed into his shoulder, and his body had absolutely no idea what to do with the input. Slowly, carefully, like he was defusing a bomb, he brought his arms up and around her. She smelled like the jasmine soap from the guest bathroom and something else, something that might have just been her. Her hair tickled his chin. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and bird-fragile, against his chest. Thank you, she whispered into his shirt. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jean-Woo's throat was too tight to respond. He just held her, this stranger who was becoming something else, and let himself have this moment of being human. When Anna finally pulled back, her eyes were red but her smile was genuine. Okay, I'm good. Sorry for the breakdown. Very professional of me. You're allowed to have feelings about your mother dying. Wow, we've gone from 0 to 100 in the emotional honesty department. But she was still smiling, watery and real. Thank you, Jean-Woo. Seriously, I don't know how I'll ever you already are. You hear? That's enough. Something shifted in her expression. She looked at him, really looked. Not past him or around him, but directly at him, taking in both sides of his face with equal attention. He tensed, waiting for the flinch, the involuntary recoil everyone eventually had when they saw the full extent of the scarring. It didn't come you hungry? She asked instead. I'm making japti, my roommate's recipe, so no promises, but it smells pretty good. Jean-Woo realized he was still standing in the kitchen, that he'd been having a conversation in a shared space like a normal person, that the world hadn't ended. Yeah, he said. I could eat. Anna's smile widened. Good, said the table. Plates are in the cabinet by the sink. He moved to follow her instructions and caught his reflection in the darkened oven door, both sides of his face visible. The scar tissue that pulled his right eye slightly downward, that twisted his mouth at one corner, that painted his cheek and tempo in shades of pink and white that would never match the rest of his skin. He looked monstrous. But Anna was humming again that old hymn about Spirozen. She'd asked him to set the table, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Jin-woo got out to plates. The thunderstorm hit Seoul 3 weeks into Anna's employment with the particular violence of spring weather that couldn't decide if it wanted to be winter or summer. Anna had been afraid of storms since she was 6 years old, since the tornado sirens in Chicago had sent her family huddling in the basement while the world tried to tear itself apart overhead. The rational part of her brain knew Seoul didn't get tornadoes, that this was just weather, just nature doing what nature did. The irrational part didn't care. Lightning cracked across the sky like the earth splitting open. Thunder followed a mute gap to count, meaning the storm was directly overhead. The apartment lights flickered, and Anna's breath caught in her throat. She'd been in the guest room trying to study for her international finance exam, but the textbook words kept blurring and her hands were shaking too hard to hold the highlighter steady. Another flash of lightning, bright enough to burn through the curtains, and Anna made a small involuntary sound she was immediately embarrassed about. She needed to move, needed to be somewhere that felt safer, even though the rational part of her brain kept screaming that the 74th floor of a modern building was perfectly safe, that lightning rods existed, that she was fine. Anna found herself in the hallway, back pressed against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees. She'd turned off all the lights in the guest room, because seeing the lightning made it worse somehow. Now she sat in the dark and tried to remember the breathing exercises her high school counselor had taught her. 4 counts in, hold 4 7, 8 counts out. The thunder shook the building. Anna looked up to find Jin-woo standing at the end of the hallway. He'd emerged from his room, which he almost never did after 8 p.m. The dim emergency lighting caught the planes of his face, casting half of it in shadow. "Hey," she managed, her voice thin. "Sorry, did I wake you? I don't sleep much anyway." He moved closer, and she saw he was wearing the same black clothes he always wore, like he had a closet full of identical outfits. "You're afraid of storms?" It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Tornado when I was little." She flinched as lightning flashed again. "Stupid, because this isn't even the couch. He's safer," he said after a moment. "Better insulation from the windows. More walls between you and the outside." Anna looked at him. His face was carefully angled so she could only see the left side, but his expression was not quite concern, but something adjacent to it. Awareness, maybe. Recognition of her fear without judgment. "Okay," she whispered. They moved to the living room together. Anna curled into the corner of the massive sectional sofa that probably cost more than her mother's mortgage. Jin-woo sat at the other end, maintaining the distance, and for a while they just existed in the semi-darkness while the storm raged outside. "Tell me about the fire," Anna said suddenly. The words surprised her, but once they were out, she didn't take them back. Jin-woo went very still. "Why?" "Because I told you my fear. Seems fair." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Thunder rolled overhead, a low growl that seemed to go on forever. Then he started talking. "I was 7. My mother was making dinner and my father was in his study. I was supposed to be doing homework, but I was actually playing video games in my room." His voice was flat, reciting facts. "The fire started in the kitchen. Electrical issue, they think. Faulty wiring in an old building. It spread fast." Another pause. Anna stayed quiet, letting him find the words at his own pace. "My mother got me out, wrapped me in a wet blanket, and carried me down 3 flights of stairs while the smoke filled everything. She went back for my father." His voice cracked slightly. "The building collapsed before they could get out. Jin-woo, the blanket slipped. That's how I got burned. Just for a few seconds, but that's all it takes. Fire doesn't care about your timing." He touched his right cheek unconsciously, fingers tracing the landscape of scar tissue. I remember screaming. I remember firefighters. I remember my grandmother's face when she saw me in the hospital like I was broken beyond repair. Lightning illuminated the room in harsh white light. Anna saw his full face then, both sides, and the pain written there had nothing to do with physical scars. I'm sorry, she said inadequately. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. But his voice wasn't angry, just tired. I used to have nightmares about it. Every night for years. The smell of smoke. The sound of my mother's voice telling me to run. The heat. I'd wake up screaming and there'd be some helper rushing in, and I'd hate them for not being her, for being alive when she wasn't. Is that why you push people away? Jinwoo turned to look at her fully, and for the first time since she'd met him, he didn't hide. Let her see everything the fire had written on his skin. I push people away, because they always leave eventually. Might as well control the timing. Thunder crashed, close enough to rattle the windows. Anna flinched, but didn't look away from him. I'm not leaving, she said. Everyone says that. I mean it. She shifted on the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. You paid for my mother's treatment. First round went through yesterday. Do you know what that means? It means she has a chance. A real chance. You gave us that? So no, Jinwoo, I'm not leaving. Something in his expression cracked, just slightly. What if the treatment doesn't work? Then I'll grieve, and I'll still be here. Because you're not just a job to me anymore. She said it simply, stating fact. You're my friend. And friends don't abandon each other when things get hard. Jinwoo's laugh was barely a breath. We're friends, aren't we? You told me about the fire. I'm telling you about my fear of storms. We eat meals together now. You actually opened a curtain last week, yeah, I noticed. That seems like friendship to me. I've never had a friend. The admission hung between them, devastating in its honesty. Anna's heart cracked, clean through. Well, now you do, she said firmly. Welcome to the club. Membership benefits include bad jokes, random facts about octopuses, and someone who won't let you disappear into the dark. I like the dark, I know. But maybe you could like the light a little too, just a little. For me, the storm was starting to pass, the thunder growing more distant, the gaps between lightning flashes lengthening. Jinwoo stared at his hands, at the scars that covered his right palm where he'd tried to shield his face too late. When my mother died, Anna said quietly, I was 14, no wait. My dad had already left. It was just me and Mama. And then she got sick the first time. Peter went into remission for 8 years. I thought we were safe. Then it came back, and this time it brought friends. I didn't know she'd been sick before. He had breast cancer the first time. Now it's in her lungs, her liver, her bones. It's everywhere, like it's making up for lost time. She wiped her eyes. But you know what she told me when I called her crying about the diagnosis? She said, baby girl, I've already had 8 bonus years. 8 years of watching you grow up, of being at your high school graduation, of helping you pack for Korea. That's 8 years I stole from death. And I'm grateful for every single one. She sounds strong. She's the strongest person I know. Taught me that strength isn't about not being scared. It's about being terrified and doing the thing anyway. Anna looked at Jinwoo. Like you coming out here when you heard me in the hallway. That was brave. I just walked down a hallway. You left your room for someone else. You saw I was struggling and you helped. That's brave, Jinwoo. He shook his head, but something in his posture had softened. The storm was nearly gone now. Just distant rumbles like the earth settling back into itself. Thank you, Anna said, for sitting with me, for telling me about the fire, for being here. You're here too, he said, and it sounded like he was realizing something. You're actually here. They sat in the quiet aftermath of the storm, 2 people, learning how to be less alone together, and Anna thought maybe this was what healing looked like. Not dramatic, not sudden, just small moments of honesty in the dark. The call came at 4 o'clock in the morning. 2 days later, Anna's phone screamed to life on her nightstand, and she grabbed it with her heart. He's already racing because nothing good ever happened at 4 a.m. Dr. Martinez, she answered before the second ring. Anna, I'm sorry to call so early. Is she okay? Is my mum? She's stable, but we need to talk about the treatment. Anna sat up, fully awake now, dread pooling in her stomach. What's wrong? The immunotherapy is causing complications. Her immune system is attacking healthy tissue along with the cancer cells. It's a known side effect, but it's severe in your mother's case. We had to stop the treatment. The room tilted. What does that mean? It means we need to wait for her body to stabilize before we can try again. Could be a few weeks, could be longer. And Anna, he paused. Without the treatment, the cancer will progress quickly. How quickly? Weeks, maybe a month. Anna couldn't breathe. The walls of the guest room were closing in, and she couldn't pull air into her lungs. And somewhere in Chicago her mother was dying faster than the doctors could save her. Can I talk to her? She's sleeping, but I'll have her call you when she wakes up. Anna, I'm sorry. We're doing everything we can. The call ended. Anna sat in the dark with her phone in her hand and felt the future she'd been desperately trying to build collapse like a house made of cards. She didn't realize she was crying until the tears dripped off her chin onto her hands. There was a soft knock on the door. Anna Jean Wu's voice, tentative. She couldn't answer. Couldn't make her throat work around the grief that was strangling her. The door opened. Jean Wu stood backlit by the hallway light, and she must have looked like a disaster because he crossed the room immediately and sat on the edge of her bed. What happened? Anna told him. The words came out broken, and she didn't try to stop. Crying didn't try to be strong or brave or any of the things she usually forced herself to be. Just let it all spill out. The treatment failing, the timeline shrinking, the crushing reality that all the money in the world couldn't buy the one thing she needed. I'm going to lose her, she sobbed. I'm going to lose my mom, and I'm not. Ready? Jean Wu, I'm not ready. He pulled her into his arms without hesitation. Anna buried her face in his shoulder and fell apart completely. And he held her through all of it. Didn't tell her it would be okay. Didn't offer false hope. He just held her while she grieved for a loss that hadn't happened yet, but was coming, inevitable as winter. I'm here, he murmured into her hair. I've got you. You're not alone. And, in that moment, in the dark hours before dawn, with her whole world crumbling, Anna believed him. She had come here to save him from his isolation. She hadn't realized he'd been learning how to save her right back. The first curtain opened on a Tuesday. Anna had been living in the apartment for 6 weeks, and she'd learned Jean Wu's patterns the way sailors learn tides necessary knowledge. For survival, he awoke at 7, avoided mirrors, drank his coffee black, while staring at the painting like it held answers to questions he'd stopped asking out loud. But that Tuesday morning, she found him standing in the living room with his hand on the curtain pull, hesitating. You okay? She asked softly, not wanting to spook him. Jean Wu's jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid with tension that radiated down his spine. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be outside, be visible, be normal. The word came out like a curse. Anna set down the breakfast tray she'd been carrying and moved to stand beside him. Not too close, just near enough that he'd know she was there. Normal is overrated, she said. And visibility doesn't mean you have to be seen by everyone. Just yourself. Start there. His fingers tightened on the fabric. What if I can't? Then you can't today. But maybe tomorrow you can. Or next week. There's no deadline on becoming who you want to be. Jean Wu pulled the curtain open in one swift motion, like ripping off a bandage. Sunlight poured into the apartment, brutal and bright and unforgiving. It hit the marble floors and exploded into brilliance that made Anna squint. Jean Wu stood frozen in the flood of light, his scarred right side fully exposed. And Anna watched him tremble with the effort of not running. Breathe, she reminded him gently. He did dragged inhales that sounded painful. His hands were shaking. The world didn't end, Anna said after a full minute passed. Look, still here, still standing. Jean Wu turned to face the window fully, and Anna saw him see Saul for the first time in who knew how long. The sprawl of the city below. Cars like toys moving through concrete canyons. Buildings stretching toward a sky so blue it hurt. "It's bright," he said, his voice strange. "Yeah, that's what happens when you let the light in." Anna moved to the kitchen, giving him space to process. "I'm making pancakes. My mom's recipe. Want some?" "Yet." He didn't move from the window. "Anna, yet." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not making it a big deal." Anna smiled to herself as she pulled out the mixing bowl. "It is a big deal, Jin-woo. You just don't need me telling you that." By the end of the week, 3 curtains were open. By the end of the month, Jin-woo was eating breakfast at the kitchen counter instead of hiding in his room, sitting in the pools of sunlight like he was learning to photosynthesize. Progress wasn't linear. Some days he retreated, closed the curtains again, disappeared into the dark. Anna let him. Didn't push, just kept existing in his space, kept humming her mother's hymns, kept leaving notes with terrible jokes and random facts. "Did you know that cows have best friends and get stressed when they're separated?" "Made me think of us," Jin-woo started, leaving notes back. "Cows also can't walk downstairs." Less relatable, gigawatt small things. But small things were how mountains moved, one grain of sand at a time. "I want to go outside." Anna looked up from her laptop where she'd been trying to focus on an essay about global supply chain management. Jin-woo stood in the doorway of the guest room, hands shoved in his pockets, looking like he was confessing to murder. Outside, she asked carefully. "Or just the balcony?" "The balcony." I thought maybe he shifted his weight. "If you're not busy." Anna saved a document and closed her laptop. "I'm never too busy for you." The balcony wrapped around the entire apartment, accessible through the living room. Anna had been out there a few times. It had a view that made her heart ache with its beauty. But Jin-woo had never joined her, had stayed inside while she'd sat in the expensive patio furniture his grandmother had bought and never used. Now he stood at the sliding door, staring at the handle like it might burn him. "What if someone sees me?" he asked quietly. "We're on the 74th floor. Who's going to see you except pigeons? People in other buildings. People with cameras. People who he stopped, jaw clenched. People who what? Take photos, post them online, mock you." Anna stood and faced him. "Maybe they will. Maybe some stranger somewhere will be cruel, because cruelty is easy and costs nothing. But Jin-woo, their cruelty says everything about them and nothing about you." "Easy for you to say, is it?" She pulled up her sleeve, showing him the long scar that ran from her elbow to her wrist. "Broke my arm when I was 10. Compound fracture. Had to have surgery. Kids at school called me Frankenstein. Said I looked like a monster. Said no boy would ever hold my hand because my arm was disgusting." Jin-woo stared at the scar. "I didn't. No. Because scars become part of you. They stop being the first thing you see." She traced the raised line absently. "Took me years to wear short sleeves again. But you know what I learned? The people who matter don't care, and the people who care don't matter. Your scar is barely visible. 2, maybe. To 10-year-old me, it was the only thing anyone could see." Anna moved to the door and unlocked it. Cool spring air rushed in, carrying the smell of the city exhaust and street food and possibility. "Come on, just 10 minutes. If it's too much, we come back in. No pressure." Jin-woo followed her onto the balcony like he was walking to his execution. The space was generous, furnished with chairs and a small table that had probably never held anything except dust. The view stretched in every direction, Seoul spreading out like a circuit board, pulsing with light and life, and 10 million people living their separate stories. Jin-woo gripped the railing and stared down at it all. "It's louder than I remembered," he said. Anna listened. Car horns, distant sirens, construction machinery, the thrum of a city that never fully stopped. Good loud or bad loud, I don't know yet. They stood in silence, Anna watching Jin-woo's face as he took in the world he'd been hiding from. The sun caught the scar tissue on his right side, turning it silver and pink. His eyes tracked movement, Below, people crossing streets, taxis weaving through traffic, life happening without his permission or participation. My mother used to bring me to markets, he said suddenly. I'd hold her hand and we'd walk through crowds of people. I wasn't afraid then. People would smile at me. Old women would give me candy. I was just a kid. You're still just a person, Anna said. The fire didn't change that, didn't it? He turned to look at her, and his expression was raw. I'm not the same. I'll never be the same. No one who survives trauma is the same after. That's not weakness, Jean Wu. That's evidence you lived through something that tried to kill you. Anna leaned against the railing beside him. My mom says scars are proof that we can heal, that our bodies know how to put themselves back together even when our minds don't. How is she? Your mother? Any updates? Anna's chest tightened. Stable. They are trying a different approach. Lower dose of the immunotherapy combined with traditional chemo. Dr. Martinez says it's promising, but she shrugged. Every update is just a different flavor of maybe. When's the last time you talked to her? This morning. She wanted to tell me about the stray cat that keeps showing up at her window. She's been feeding it, named it Soul because she says it's a survivor, like this city. Anna smiled despite the ache behind her ribs. She's convinced the cat is a good omen. Cliff is it? I don't believe in omens, but I believe in my mama's hope. So if she thinks it means something good, then maybe it does. Jean Wu was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. I'd like to meet her. Your mother? If the treatment works? Anna's breath caught. Yeah. She raised someone who sees past scars. It's not a small thing. He stayed on the balcony for 30 minutes, then an hour. Jean Wu's shoulders gradually dropped from around his ears. His breathing evened out. When a woman on a nearby balcony glanced their direction, he didn't retreat, just turned his head slightly and endured the look. Progress. When they finally went back inside, Jean Wu seemed different, lighter somehow. He went to his room and came back with something. In his hands a small photograph in a water-damaged frame. This was from before, he said, handing it to Anna. The photo showed a family, a man with Jean Wu's sharp features, a woman with a smile that could light rooms, and between them a little boy with both hands raised in victory, his face bright, with uncomplicated joy. You were beautiful, Anna said. Was. She met his eyes. You're still that kid, Jean Wu, just with more story written on your skin. He took the photo back, studying it like he was trying to remember what happiness felt like. I blamed them for a long time. My parents, for dying, for leaving me. That's normal, is it? Grief doesn't follow rules. You feel what you feel. Anna touched his arm lightly. But maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself for surviving. Jean Wu set the photo on the kitchen counter where the sunlight from the open curtains could reach it. A small act, a huge gesture. I'm trying, he said quietly. I know, and you're doing better than you think. That night, Anna found another note under her door. Thank you for the balcony, for not letting me disappear, for being patient while I figure out how to be human again. Also, did you know that seahorses mate for life? Seems relevant somehow. GW Anna pressed the note to her chest and let herself cry, not from sadness, but from something bigger. Hope, maybe, or recognition that healing happened in moments like these, small and unremarkable and absolutely essential. Tomorrow, Jean Wu wanted to try opening another curtain. Tomorrow, her mother would call with updates about Soul the cat. Tomorrow was still coming, still possible, still worth surviving today for. Anna fell asleep with the note on her nightstand and sunlight on her face. And for the first time in months, she dreamed of something other than loss. Hey soul lovers, if you're hooked on the story like I am, do me a favor and hit the like button. And don't forget to let me know where you are watching from. I love seeing our global community connected across time and space. Click and turn on notifications so you'll never miss when I drop mind-blowing stories. Now, back to Jean Wu and Anna, because things are about to get intense. Jean Wu's first therapy session happened on a Thursday. He'd been researching therapists for 3 weeks, reading reviews, checking credentials, looking for someone who specialized in trauma and wouldn't treat him like a project. Anna had offered to help, but this was something he needed to do alone, a choice he was making for himself. Not because his grandmother demanded it, or because some helper suggested it. Dr. Yun had kind eyes, visible even through the video call screen. She was older, maybe 60, with grey streaks in her hair she hadn't bothered to hide. "Tell me why you're here, Jin-woo," she said after the introductions. He'd prepared an answer, had practiced it in the mirror, the covered one in his bathroom, that he'd finally uncovered 2 days ago. But sitting in front of this stranger, even through a screen, the rehearsed words felt hollow. "I'm tired of being afraid," he said instead. "Afraid of what?" "Everything. The outside. People looking at me, myself." He touched his scarred cheek, a nervous habit he was trying to break. "I've spent years hiding. I think I'm ready to stop." "What changed?" Jin-woo thought about Anna on the balcony, describing Seoul below like she was painting it into existence for him. Thought about her mother's voice over the phone, warm and alive, despite the cancer eating through her. Thought about the photograph of his parents he could finally look at without feeling like he was drowning. "Someone reminded me that I'm still alive," he said, "and maybe that's worth something." Dr. Yoon smiled. "That's a good place to start." The sessions became weekly, then twice weekly. Jin-woo talked about the fire, about his parents, about the 23 helpers who'd given up on him. He talked about his grandmother's disappointment, about the inheritance he'd never touched, about the guilt that lived in his chest like a second heart. And he talked about Anna. "You care about her," Dr. Yoon observed during their 5th session. Jin-woo had been describing the way Anna hummed while she cooked, how the sound-filled spaces in him he hadn't known were empty. He stopped mid-sentence. "Of course I care about her. She's my friend. Is that all she is?" The question landed, like a stone in still water, sending ripples through everything Jin-woo thought he understood about himself. "I don't know how to be someone's anything," he said carefully. "I'm still learning how to be a person. Those aren't mutually exclusive." Jin-woo stared at his hands, at the scars on his right palm that had faded over the years but were still visible. A map of that night written on his skin. "She deserves better than half a person." "Who told you that you're half a person?" "Look at me. I'm looking at you. I see someone who survived something terrible. Someone who's doing the hard work of healing. Someone who's learning to live again." Dr. Yan leaned forward slightly. "Jin-woo, your scars don't make you less. They make you someone who endured. But I'm broken. Broken things can still be beautiful, still be functional, still be worthy of love." She paused. "What are you really afraid of?" Jin-woo closed his eyes, took a breath, let himself say the thing he'd been avoiding. That she'll realize she can do better. That once her mother is once, she doesn't need this job anymore. She'll leave, and I'll have to go back to being alone. "Have you told her how you feel?" "How can I? She's grieving. Her mother is dying, and I'm paying for treatments that might not work. The power dynamic is each wrong. I can't put that on her." "So you're protecting her from your feelings?" "I'm protecting both of us." Dr. Yoon was quiet for a moment. "Jin-woo, Anna is an adult who can make her own choices. Keeping your feelings hidden because you think you know what's best for her, that's not protection. That's control, disguised as care." The words hit harder than they should have. That night, Jin-woo couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony, his balcony now, a place he'd reclaimed, and watched Seoul breathe below him. Lights in windows, lives being lived, people loving and losing and somehow continuing anyway. He heard the sliding door open behind him. "Can't sleep either?" Anna asked, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the cool night air. "Too much in." She joined him at the railing, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Jin-woo had stopped flinching from proximity, had started leaning into it instead. "Want to talk about it?" she asked. "Yes. No, maybe." Jin-woo searched for words that wouldn't sound like a confession. "Do you ever regret coming here?" he asked instead. Anna turned to look at him. surprise clear on her face. What? No? Why would you ask that? Because your life would be simpler without me in it. You could have taken a normal job. Could have Jean Wu. She said his name like an anchor. Life isn't simple, with or without you. My mama is dying. I'm 7,000 miles from home trying to finish a degree I'm not sure matters anymore. Nothing about my existence is uncomplicated. She paused. But you are the best part of my days. You know that, right? His throat felt tight. I'm the best part. Yeah, you make me laugh with your terrible notes. You listen when I talk about supply chains like they're actually interesting. You open curtains for me, even though it scares. You gave my mother a chance when hope was running out. Her voice went soft. You see me, Jean Wu. Really see me. Not just the girl working 3 jobs, or the daughter with the sick mum. You see all of me. That's rare. That's everything. Jean Wu's heart was doing complicated things in his chest. Anna, I know I'm supposed to keep professional boundaries, she continued, like she was afraid if she stopped talking she'd never get it all out. I know this started as a job, but somewhere between your first note about octopuses and the balcony and you holding me while I ugly cried at 4 a.m., it stopped being just a job. You stopped being just my employer. And I know that's probably inappropriate and I should probably feel guilty about it, but I don't. I just feel grateful. For you. For this. For whatever we're becoming. What are we becoming? Jean Wu asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Anna met his eyes. I don't know, but I'd like to find out. If you want that too. Jean Wu thought about Dr. Yun's words. About control disguised as care. About Anna being an adult who could make her own choices. About the fact that life was short and uncertain and his parents had died without warning, without getting to choose anything about their ending. He reached out slowly, giving Anna time to pull away, and took her hand. Her fingers laced through his like they'd been designed to fit together. I want that too, he said. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want it. Anna smiled, and it was like the sun coming up. Good, because I'm terrified too. We can figure it out together. Jean Wu pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, and Anna tucked herself against his chest like she belonged there. They stood on the balcony while souls sprawled beneath them, 2 people learning that bravery looked like choosing someone despite the fear. Anna, thank you for staying, for seeing me, for being patient while I learned how to be human again. She pulled back just enough to look up at him. You were always human, Jean Wu. You just forgot for a while. I'm glad you're remembering. Then she kissed him, soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. Jean Wu froze for a heartbeat, his mind going blank with surprise and want and terror. Then he kissed her, back careful and clumsy, like someone remembering a language they'd once spoken fluently. When they broke apart, Anna was crying. Happy tears, she clarified quickly, laughing. Sorry, I'm a mess. I didn't know if you felt the same way, and I've been so scared to say anything, because what if I was wrong? And Jean Wu kissed her again, swallowing the words, and this time it was easier, less thought, more feeling. His hands found her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. The world narrowed to this warmth and breath, and the terrifying vulnerability of letting someone in. I'm falling in love with you, he said against her mouth. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what you need, but I'm falling, and I can't stop. Then don't stop, Anna whispered. Fall with me, we'll figure out the landing together. They stayed on the balcony until the sky started lightening, until Seoul began waking up for another day, and when they finally went inside, hands still linked, Jean Wu felt something he hadn't felt in 17 years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that clung to impossible outcomes, but the quiet kind that whispered, maybe tomorrow would be good. Maybe healing was possible. Maybe love could exist alongside grief. Maybe he deserved this. Inside, his phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Yun, confirming their next session. Jean Wu looked at Anna making coffee in his kitchen, humming one of her mother's songs, and felt grateful for the work he was doing. for the courage it took to sit with a therapist and excavate all the broken parts of himself. Because healing wasn't about becoming who he was before the fire. It was about becoming someone new. Someone who could hold both the scars and the softness. Someone who could love despite the fear. Anna handed him coffee, kissed his scarred cheek like it was precious, and Jin-woo let himself believe tomorrow was still coming. And for the first time in years, he wanted to be there to meet it. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 months after Anna and Jin-woo had stopped pretending they were just friends. Anna was sitting at the kitchen counter, Jin-woo reading beside her something they did now, existing in comfortable silence while Seoul hummed 74 floors below. Her phone vibrated. Dr. Martinez. Her stomach dropped away. It always did when she saw his name on the screen. "Hey, Dr. Martinez," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Jin-woo looked up immediately, setting his book aside. He reached for her free hand and she gripped it like a lifeline. "Anna, I need you to sit down." "I'm sitting." "Your mother's latest scans came back." He paused, and in that pause Anna heard everything: the careful breath, the weighted silence of a doctor who delivered too much bad news. The tumors are growing again, faster this time. The combination therapy isn't working. The kitchen tilted and his vision narrowed to a pinpoint. "What does that mean?" "It means we've run out of clinical options." "I'm sorry, Anna. We tried everything we could." "How long?" Her voice sounded far away, like someone else was asking. "Weeks, maybe a month." She's asking about hospice care, about going home. Anna couldn't breathe. The air had turned solid, jamming in her throat. Jin-woo's hand tightened on hers, anchoring her to the present. "Can I talk to her? She's resting right now, but she wanted me to tell you first. Wanted me to remind you that she loves you, that she's proud of you, that she's not afraid." The call ended. Anna sat staring at nothing, the phone still pressed to her ear. "Anna," Jin-woo's voice, gentle. "What did he say?" She told him. The words came out mechanical, factual, like she was reading someone else's tragedy from a script. "Tumors growing. Treatment failed. Weeks, not months. Her mother dying while Anna was an ocean away. I need to go home," she said suddenly. "I need to be with her." "I need, then we'll go," Jin-woo said immediately. "Both of us. I'll arrange everything. Flights, accommodations, whatever you need." "Jin-woo, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His eyes were fierce. "You stood beside me when I was falling apart. Let me stand beside you now." Anna broke. The grief she'd been holding back for months came flooding out in wrenching sobs that tore from somewhere deep in her chest. Jin-woo pulled her into his arms and held her while she fell apart, murmuring things she couldn't hear over the sound of her own breaking. "I'm not ready," she gasped against his shoulder. "I'm not ready to lose her." I know, love. I'm so sorry." They sat on the kitchen floor, Anna curled in Jin-woo's lap like a child, and cried for all the things that couldn't be fixed with money, or hope, or desperate wanting. They flew to Chicago 3 days later. Jin-woo had never left Seoul before, had barely left his apartment in years, but he sat beside Anna on the plane, fingers white-knuckled on the armrest during takeoff, and didn't complain. Wore a mask that covered most of his scar tissue and sunglasses indoors, and endured the looks from other passengers. For her, he was doing this. For Anna, he was facing the world. Patricia Andrews was in hospice care at a facility on the south side. Anna had warned Jin-woo that her mother looked different. Now the cancer and treatments had stolen her weight, her hair, the vitality that used to pour from her like light. But when they walked into her room, Patricia's smile was exactly as Jin-woo had imagined, warm, knowing, full of grace. "Baby girl," she said, and her voice was thin but steady. "Here." Anna rushed to her bedside, taking her mother's hand carefully, like she might break. "Mama, I'm here. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. I should have hushed now. You're exactly where you needed to be, and you brought someone." Patricia's eyes found Jin-woo standing awkwardly in the doorway. "You must be Jin-woo. Come closer." "Honey, let me look at you." Jinwoo approached slowly, hyper-aware of his appearance, of the mask he was still wearing. Patricia gestured for him to sit. "You can take that off if you want," she said gently. "Scars don't scare me. I've got plenty of my own now. Just mine are on the inside where people can't see them." Jinwoo glanced at Anna, who nodded encouragingly. He removed the mask with shaking hands. Patricia studied his face without flinching, without pity, with only the frank assessment of someone who'd learned to see what mattered. "My daughter has good eyes," she said finally. "Always has. She sees people's hearts before she sees anything else. I'm glad she saw yours." Jinwoo's throat closed. "Mrs. Andrews, Patricia, please, and I should be thanking you. Anna told me what you did for treatments, the specialists. You gave us time, 3 extra months of phone calls and photos, and telling each other about our days. That's not nothing. That's everything. I wish it had been enough," Jinwoo said quietly. "Honey, nothing was ever going to be enough. This thing in mid's been growing for years, just waiting for its moment. It didn't fail. He gave us a gift." She reached for his hand with her free one, the one not holding on us. "You take care of my girl. You hear me? Not because she can't take care of herself. She can, but because everyone deserves someone who sees them, who stays." "I will," Jinwoo promised. "I am." Patricia smiled. "I know. I can see it in how you look at her. Same way her daddy used to look at me before he forgot how." Her eyes drifted to Anna. "Baby, I need you to listen to me now." "I'm listening, Mama." "Need you to let me go when it's time. Don't hold on so tight that you hurt yourself. Promise me you'll keep living, keep loving, keep becoming whoever you're meant to be." "Mama, please don't promise me." Anna Marie. Anna's face crumpled. "I promise." "But Mama, I don't know how to do this without you." "Yes, you do. You've been doing it. You went halfway around the world and built yourself a whole new life. Found this beautiful man who looks at you like you hung the moon." Patricia's breathing was labored now, each word an effort. "I'm so proud of you, so proud of the woman you became. Your daddy would be too, if he had any sense." They stayed until Patricia fell asleep, her hands still holding theirs. In the hallway, Jinwoo pulled Anna close. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. Ask me later." She pressed her face into his chest. "Thank you for coming, for being here. I couldn't do this alone." "You're not alone. Not anymore. Not ever again, if I have anything to say about it." Patricia Andrews died on a Saturday morning, 11 days after Anna came home. She went peacefully, Anna and Jinwoo on either side of her bed. One moment she was breathing, labored but present. The next, she simply stopped, like she'd finally set down a weight she'd been carrying too long. Anna didn't cry at first, just sat holding her mother's hand while it grew cool, while the machines flatlined, while nurses came with quiet efficiency to handle what came next. "She's gone," Anna whispered, testing the words, making them real. Jinwoo kissed her temple. "I'm here. I've got you." The crying came later, in waves, in storms. Anna would be fine for hours, and then suddenly she'd remember her mother would never answer the phone again, never send encouraging texts, never meet any grandchildren Anna might have. The loss would hit fresh, and she'd break open all over again. Jinwoo caught her every time. He held her through the funeral arrangements, sat beside her during the service while family members Anna barely remembered offered condolences that meant nothing, helped her sort through Patricia's apartment, deciding what to keep and what to let go. "This was her favorite mug," Anna said, holding a chipped ceramic cup with "World's Best Mom" painted on it. "I gave it to her for Mother's Day when I was 8. Saved up my allowance for 3 months. Then we're keeping it," Jinwoo said firmly. They kept the mug and Patricia's recipe box, and the quilt she'd made from Anna's childhood clothes, and the photograph. Albums that documented a life fully lived despite hardship. 2 weeks after the funeral, they flew back to Seoul. Anna was different now, quieter. The grief had settled into her bones, changing her shape in subtle ways. But she was still Anna, still humming while she cooked, still leaving notes with terrible jokes. still seeing Jin-woo completely. "I miss her," she said one night on the balcony. "Every day I miss her. But I'm also grateful." "Is that wrong?" "Grateful? For what? That she got to know about you? That I could tell her I was happy? That her last months weren't just about dying. They were about living too. About hoping I'd be okay." Anna leaned into Jin-woo's embrace. "She died knowing I wasn't alone. That matters. You're never going to be alone again," Jin-woo said fiercely. "I mean it, Anna. Whatever we're building here, it's permanent for me, if you'll have me." Anna pulled back to look at him. "Jin-woo, I'm not proposing. Not yet. But I'm saying that I love you. That you changed everything. That before you I was just existing and now I'm actually alive." He cupped her face gently. "I'm saying I want forever with you. However long that is." "I love you too," Anna whispered. "God, I love you so much. It scares me sometimes." "Me too. But maybe being scared is okay. Maybe it means we're doing something real." They kissed in the sauna, two scarred people, choosing each other, choosing hope, choosing the terrifying vulnerability of love. 6 months later, Jin-woo walked into a coffee shop in Gangnam. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't hide the right side of his face. He just walked in like any other customer and ordered a latte from a barista who barely glanced at his scars. Anna was waiting at a corner table, working on her laptop. She looked up when he approached and her whole face lit up. Still, after all this time, she looked at him like it was something precious. "How'd it go?" she asked. Ash sat down. "Good. Really good, actually." Jin-woo had been meeting with his grandmother's company, learning the business, preparing to take a more active role. "I think I might actually be decent at this." "Of course you are. You're decent at everything." Anna clicked her laptop. "Also, I have news. I got the internship. The one with the trade commission." "Anna, that's amazing." Jin-woo grabbed her hands across the table. "I'm so proud of you. It's because of you. Because you believed I could do it. No, it's because you're brilliant and worked your butt off," as she cheered from the sidelines. They left the coffee shop hand in hand, walking through Gangnam's crowded streets. People looked at Jin-woo's scars. He noticed, let them look, kept walking. "You okay?" Anna asked, sensing his tension. "Yeah? Getting better at this. Looking the existing in public." He squeezed her hand. "Still hard sometimes, but easier with you. We're getting pretty good at this whole healing thing," Anna observed. "Both of us. Here we are." They walked home through Seoul's evening chaos to people who'd found each other in the dark and learned to walk toward the light together. The scars remained on Jin-woo's face, on Anna's heart, in the spaces where their losses lived. But scars were just proof of survival, evidence that they'd endured. And endurance, they'd learned, was its own kind of victory. Soul lovers, thank you so much for sticking with Jin-woo and Anna's story. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from and what time is it where you are. Drop your country and time in the comments below. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember, the scars we carry are proof we survived.